In this video, I'm going to be taking you along as I make a delicious lasagna for dinner tonight, and I'm also making a second one to freeze away for a hearty, delicious meal after the baby arrives. This is one of our absolute favorite meals with a lot of substance from the meat. We use a rich homemade pasta sauce. These are all from last year's tomato crop, freshly rolled sourdough egg noodles, and I'm going to show you my attempt at making homemade mozzarella. We are just now getting milk where I have enough to try a little bit of cheese making. I'm still very new to this, so we aren't quite getting enough milk for me to regularly practice my cheese making skills, but you never learn till you start somewhere. So mozzarella is a really easy one. I've made it before, but I have not mastered it, so I'm working on that now. You'll see throughout this video. In the midst of the cooking, we're going to chat some about birth, our own individual journeys to where we are today, and opening up our hearts as mothers and our homes to a new life. So since I'm coming up on the birth of our fourth little baby, I wanted to chat just a little bit about birth, the process, surrendering to the process, and kind of a few little thoughts that have been on my mind lately that might encourage you if you are entering season soon to give birth to another little one. The gift that birth offers us is actually that we have no choice but to surrender to the process, no matter how much we plan and prepare for that event. I'm a very planned out type A person, and birth has taught me that that personality type does not go very far in the birthing process. Nonetheless, going into your birth and postpartum season prepared, informed, and connected to other women who've been there before you does make a huge difference. So you can't plan it all out. Being prepared and connected really does help. In my own experience, going into birth, intentionally preparing for the journey ahead has brought me much less fear and anxiety leading up to each of my children's birth. I have a greater flexibility to surrender to the process of birth, the labor pains that bring my child closer to meeting us, and I can feel really confident in my birth choices, no matter what others may think about them. Being prepared actually reduces the stress around the entire journey of birth. Birth is not just a one-day event. It's a journey to a place where you are forever changed. You are not powerless to the process. You're an active participant in the birth. We get to make what we want out of our experience. So for example, my first birthing experience, I knew nothing about birth, except you went to a doctor and they basically told you everything to do as far as what to eat, what not to eat, when to come to the hospital, when to push the baby out, as they counted from 1 to 10. But it was about 4 months into that first pregnancy, my eyes were opened by my doula to the options that women actually had for birth. Things that had been asked of me by my providers and pushed upon me all of a sudden just didn't feel right, and my motherly instinct finally started to kick in. However, I was still very nervous about that birth, and I let other people's opinion persuade me towards things I ultimately was not comfortable with for myself and my firstborn child. So a little about the lasagna. You've seen me put together our pasta sauce. I do that first because I like for it to simmer for a good 3 to 4 hours, if not all day. It really enriches and enhances the flavor of your sauce. Now moving on to making our sourdough noodles. These also need to ferment for a few hours on the counter. So this is pretty early in the morning. You see all of this, the pasta meat sauce and the sourdough noodles getting prepared, and then we'll pick back up later in the afternoon. Now, as I'm preparing for my fourth birth, my mindset has drastically shifted around my perspective of birth, and I can truly say I look forward to the process without any fear or care of others' opinions concerning my plans. I wanted to quickly add here that when I or any other person on a social platform shares their preferences or opinions for something, whether it be birth, how to plant a garden, anything really that people share on social media. We are simply sharing a different approach for something. We're not implying that your own way is incorrect. It just means that we are all unique, and that's perfectly fine. I'm getting things ready now for the cheese making process. So I'm using the beginner's cheese making book. It's really helpful. Like I said, I made mozzarella before, but I feel like I've messed it up several times. So I'm really paying attention to these directions and seeing if this book lays it out a little more clearly and I can have a successful mozzarella for this lasagna today. I love sharing my personal story and knowledge around birth and what I've learned from this process, but there can be a lot of judgment that comes with that. Sometimes it feels really hard to share how excited I am about birth or how wonderful I felt in my pregnancies when I know someone else in the world is feeling the complete opposite, and it can be very triggering for them. But if we aren't constantly sharing and learning from others, how do we actually grow and evolve? So as I share more on birth and preparing to welcome our child into this world, I really just want to remind you that my own journey does not undermine where you are in your own journey. I hear from many of you who are working and navigating through your own life changes and your own journeys, and it truly means so much to hear from you all. That's why I continue to show up and share in this space. So I just mixed up a Nora tea as I'm watching this cheese making process. Cheese making is really simple. There's not a lot of steps, but there's a lot of watching and checking times. So that's why I'm trying to be really diligent and paying close attention to this process. So back to birthing. When we quickly approach our baby's due month, week, or day, we have to go into labor with an opened mind. If you have it all set that labor will be a certain way, you're going to fail yourself and your expectations. Go in knowing that your body knows what to do, and innately God designed our bodies to do this job well. It knows what to do to birth your baby. You must only follow its lead and listen to its cues and its needs. If you're really tuned in, you will know if you should be in an upright position or on a hands and knees position to birth your baby. You will know if your body is ready to push and how long you need to push or hold that push. Or even more so, if you even need to push at all or just let the fetal ejection reflex take over. You will read the cues. Our bodies know what our babies need to work their way down the birth canal, and a focused into mama will be able to clue into those things. You really have no control over what day or time or who's there when your baby arrives, how hard the work will be or how easy it will be, how painful it will be or how smoothly it will flow. You just accept that God and your body have a plan. It will indeed be easier to support your body's needs through labor and the transformation into motherhood. So I read this quote from one of my recent books I'm reading surrounded positivity and birth. I love watching and reading and surrounding myself with positive birth stories going into my own births. But the quote said, "Birth is much more about the wriggling of a tiny body out of a larger one. When we birth, we don't just birth our babies. We birth ourselves, we birth our families, and we reshape our lives." This just reminds me that each time we birth, we become a new version of ourselves. Our motherhood journey either evolves right then and there, or it grows to accommodate our newest child, along with our older child or children. Each birth changes you as a woman and a mother, and in the most beautiful and special way. So lastly, I want to touch on those comments that you might get when you have a growing family. The ones of, well, how do you share your love with that many children? Are they in for a rude awakening when the new baby arrives? The ones that are probably well-meaning and not meant to throw stabs at your mothering, but still aren't probably the most comforting thing for a mother to hear who is about to give birth to another child. So my answer to this is, as a mother, you just grow and expand. With each new child, I felt my heart grow with the love I'm able to offer. I'm now working on the noodles. I have a manual pasta roller. My 3-year-old daughter loves to help me with this. So we're now just getting it's layers of the lasagna here. So I start with meat, then I add a layer of noodles, then a layer of cottage cheese, egg mixture. You could use ricotta, I just didn't have ricotta. And then I repeat that till we get to the top. And you see the one to the side in the parchment paper, that is going to be the one that is going to be frozen for a meal in the postpartum. It may seem like it would be difficult to spread your love around with multiple children, especially if you have more than 2, if you have a larger than average family. Honestly, I don't even think of 4 kids as having a large family, but by today's standards, I guess it kind of is. And I could see how it would be very hard to understand until you were in that capacity to grow your ability to love as your family grows. Like, your heart just literally grows with your family. And as far as the other children being in for a wake-up call with a new baby in the house, I've honestly never understood this one, because in our own experience, our older children have always welcomed each new addition with absolute grace. Maybe this isn't the case for all families, but in our family, we talk about a new child joining our family and how excited we are to welcome them. Through my pregnancies, I try my best not to make the new baby a burden to my older children. Things like telling them they can't sit with me. I still try to hold them when we read books and cuddle them each night before bed, even though as my belly grows, this gets harder and harder. And I'm by no means perfect at this, but I really try hard not to make the pregnancy and the new baby feel like a burden to my older children. But I think if you hold a family culture within your home of we are a team, we do things together because we love each other and want to make life easier for one another, our children see that and they welcome a new child into the family with love versus jealousy. Of course, for some time, the new baby will get more of the mother's attention because they literally need that to survive. They need food, they need contact, they need the love. And my older children are always welcome to sit alongside whenever they wish as they get acquainted with the new baby as well, because it's not just the parents getting acquainted to the new child, it's just the older sibling or siblings as well. We always let them hold their new siblings whenever they ask, but it's never been like baby is off limits and they have to stay in this corner and you're not allowed to touch them. I think this family culture helps a lot with not having your older children in for that rude awakening when the new baby arrives. So I hope that this encourages you if you're struggling with how to open your heart to love the next child that you're welcoming into your family. And it gives you a little hope that your older children aren't going to go into a complete jealous rage when the new baby arrives. Again, birth is so much more than a tiny human entering this world. It's a new birth as a mother and a new family that is born as well. And this lasagna was absolutely delicious. It needed a little more cheese to hold it together. If you let it set up for longer, it will kind of hold together a little better. But we were ready to eat. It was dinner time and it was delicious.